Have you ever felt like your brain is wired differently, perhaps even chaotically, but somehow it becomes your greatest strength? I wanted to expand more on Blake Eastman's ADHD journey story, who was a professional poker player turned behavioral expert and shared how embracing a unique mindset can transform your challenges into extraordinary success. So, having that said, we talked a lot about reframing ADHD as a strength, okay? ADHD is not a disorder, but it's a different way of how our brains work differently than others. Our brain is wired differently, okay? And it really contributes to our unique successes and talents. Makes us different. It's a brain thing, not a you thing. Blake really shared about how his story about and his reluctance to label himself with ADHD, because he wanted to focus more on understanding and leveraging his unique traits. And you know what? I get it. Having the label, a lot of people use it as an excuse. People use an excuse to justify that you're different and you're not appreciated. And I like that aspect. I always say ADHD is a label for us to understand so we can get an explanation, but never use it as an excuse. And what was fortunate for Blake, I really thought was really cool, was that his mother's influence and not allowing him, as he put it in his words, not allow him to be labeled or medicated, allowed him to develop coping strategies and self-awareness. And that's a really awesome gift to give someone at an early age, is to give him or her that self-awareness of them being different. And then in his case, he developed different coping strategies. And that really, in a way, those strategies to overcome the challenges and coping with the ADHD brain is actually a lot of the reasons why he's very successful as an entrepreneur and wanting to go more and deeper into things, especially around his behavioral analysis or assessment thing. One thing I really enjoyed about his insights and his experience was that he really focused on lifestyle and management. For him to get more successful, he started as an entrepreneur. He did a lot of stuff. He played poker. He started analyzing behavior. But there was still something in the way. And, he realized it was his lifestyle which affected his self-management. And I think that's a really key thing to understand here. So the one thing he really focused on was on sleep. He never realized that his impact on sleep, the impact of sleep on his day-to-day focus and productivity was definitely related to the amount of sleep he was getting. And like he said, lack of sleep, he notices now that a lack of sleep exacerbates his ADHD symptoms. And the symptoms, remember, any strength can be a weakness if overutilized or underutilized. So that's why a lot of our strengths become weaknesses when we don't have a good hold on them, and lack of sleep is one of them. Diet and exercise, he really said that made a big deal. And I see that in myself too, especially for managing type 2 diabetes. But the other thing I did notice too is physical exercise really helps you focus, actually. There's a lot of science behind that. It helps you focus, it gets you moving, and a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs need that constant motion. So exercise can get a lot of that pent-up energy out, actually pent-up frustrations, pent-up emotions, and physically get it out. And then we can actually regulate our emotions a lot better and easier. He really worked on whole foods, proper eating, and try to stay away from the shit food. And at the same time, physical activity and proper eating does help our focus and our strategic timing, okay? Blake really explained quite a bit of detail, and I thought it was really cool about his systems that suits him, right? Every ADHD person that you meet has that ADHD types and traits, and he really figured out how he works best. So his personal systems and routines to harness his traits really helped turning convert the potential weaknesses into strengths. And it's actually more about removing distractions and playing within the abilities of your ADHD brain and his as well. So it's not necessarily that we got a weakness of distraction, is we just have to remove distractions, and so that we can play within our abilities of the ADHD brain. Now, why a lot of people go into entrepreneurship who have ADHD? I think there's a bit of a discussion here. I think there's a lot of us have no choice but to do that. But there's a lot of us that do it because it's just, we have an entrepreneurial brain as well. Not only ADHD, but an entrepreneurial brain. We reviewed and discussed that Dr. Dodson's interest-based nervous system concept. Since our ADHD brains operate on an interest-based system, we thrive in stimulating and complex environments, and it really suits entrepreneurial ventures. And for one of Blake's key assets for thriving in the entrepreneurial ventures was his ability for hyperfocus and to use it as an asset and not be ashamed of it. Okay, so he described his ability to hyperfocus on complex tasks as a valuable asset in poker and in business. Okay, it allows for deeper problem solving, as he calls it, spidering, working through complex problems. And I really like that analogy because it just really gave me, when he said it, it was like going through a spider going over a web from one here, one there. And then, we keep, problems is technically a spider web that keeps continually being spun. And that's really cool. So I really like the term spidering that he had. The other thing he really pushed, and I really agree with this, is, and it's one of the reasons why I started the podcast and why I started reaching out more to people, is community, okay? And within that, you can do coaching and community, okay? Let's go with coaching first. He stressed, and I completely agree, that the value of coaching and external feedback to overcoming your blind spots improves your entrepreneurial performance, and the money that you spend, you will save the money. Sorry, let me start that one over. The money you spend on coaching, you will save that money in the long run, okay? So it's a point that you get someone external sees your misgivings or your shortcomings and your abilities and your weaks. And then I'm talking about the ADHD side here. I'm talking about the business side, the entrepreneurial side, realizing maybe you're going down the wrong path, or help you focus and stay accountable is another thing. But the important part as well too is having a community that understands you and gets you. And you could also get that with the coaching, or even some coaching programs creates a community, or find an entrepreneurial community that has it. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Impulsive Thinker here, is create the high achieving or the growth mindset ADHD entrepreneur community, so that we can all understand and we don't have to justify our quote unquote symptoms. So I really enjoyed this conversation with Blake, and I recommend that you listen to it again. He had a lot of subtle statements and points of view, and I think it was really cool that someone really figured this out on his own, and then with the behavioral analysis part of his experience really was able to put a nice twist on it. So let's finish with this. ADHD is not a disorder. It's not the first time you hear me say it. It's a difference in the brain operating system. It doesn't operate like anyone else. It provides us with unique ways to solve problems that others can't. We just do things differently, and that is judged by others. That is what is being judged, that we do things differently. So by you understanding your ADHD strengths and create a new environment for success by reframing your ADHD as a strength, modifying your lifestyle to improve self-management, and finding a community and coach to support your growth. So let me know what you think about this conversation I had with Blake. You can email me at Andre@theimpulsivethinker.com. At Andre@theimpulsivethinker.com. I would love to hear from you. So thanks again for learning with me. We'll talk to you soon.